There is fullness and connection.
There is a growing comfort.
Tenderness and vulnerability.
The truth of who I am. So we've just been through this incredible experience together, and I found the courage to express my frustration. And in that is a freedom to feel joy and love and connection.
I must say it was so wonderful from my perspective to really feel the energy of the expression, and even just the word courage.
And it's like the courage, to be in our hearts, the willingness to go to that place, and the love that it creates is so beautiful. Wow. What an opportunity to express how much we care. I will always remember this experience because I've just learned more about myself. Passion for
Emanating presence for love.
And this process has allowed me to find aspects of myself that I wasn't aware that were there. Yeah, so thank you very much. The courage to feel our feelings. This is the crux of it all.
Hello and welcome to Just This, Courage of Being with Esmond Bobby. I'm Bobby, Just This creator and host. In our hyper-connected world, I see increasing separation. I believe that connecting and learning with each other is profoundly inspirational and healing. Just This creates and captures the magic of group connection. I guide our guests through social meditation frameworks where we improvise expressions of collective emotion and wisdom. Esmond Bobby is my guest on this first episode. Esmond is a great man, a loving father, and a men's emotional coach. He guides men to open up and understand the fullness of their emotional experience. This video shows how we improvised the 3-verse poem, Courage of Being, followed by an open discussion that unpacks and explores some of the subjects inspired by this process, such as the challenges and rewards of stepping into men's work, the courage and beauty of asking for help, and summoning the energy of anger in a positive way. Like, subscribe, and follow our socials for complete poetry, meditations, creative process videos, and NFT drops. Just This illustrates the way that I work creatively with autotelic arts. So if you would like my help finding unique inspiration and creativity in your projects, get in touch. It's my pleasure to introduce Just This, Courage of Being with Esmond Bobby. There is vibrating energy.
There is growing feeling of love.
There is emotional softening.
There is a gradual widening.
There is energy rising and determination. Thank you. So yeah, there we go. That's a kind of typical social meditation practice. How was it?
Enjoyable. Enjoyable to freely be with what was, and to allow all that was there to be there. And there was a lot. There was a lot present.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to let our subject for today emerge. We're going to do 2 short practices based around what's needed. So this is more of a feeling for what we feel the world needs. Then we'll go on to do what wants to emerge in the same way. So this is more the context of what's in us,
Okay.
personally, or in the the group energy
Okay.
that wants to emerge. What is needed?
Freedom of expression.
Tenderness and vulnerability.
Courage and bravery.
Curiosity and perseverance. What wants to emerge?
What wants to emerge?
A cry for freedom.
The truth of who I am.
Illustrious expressions.
The grief that masks the joy.
Support, encouragement and love.
An overflowing of love.
For the title or the subject that we'll use to practice with, we need to create like a kind of a synthesis of these two now.
Well, the fullness of being and the courage to feel.
Yes.
Courage of being.
That was exactly what was in my mind. May courage of being arise.
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 As courage of being, allowing sensitivity.
As courage of being facing myself.
As courage of being expanding shamelessly.
As courage of being who I am.
As courage of being in allowing sensitivity, tapping into the nuances, the delicate.
As courage of being who I am and the fullest aspect of my beingness.
There is this tingling remembrance, this guiding force, this pulling delight, painfully stripping through that which causes pain towards the wholeness.
Loving myself fiercely, ferociously, stepping up into the force and fullness of who I am. The ferocity and courage of anger, my power, my purpose, my drive, my life.
What is present in courage of being? This fear, this wavering, this quivering, this avoidance, this courage to push past it, this knowing of expression, this desire to connect, this desire for closeness. This
No more lies, no more pretense, no more fear, just this frustration, this power that is seeking expression through me, this force of life that has been so pushed down for so long.
And brilliant expressions, expressing newness, being unique, being unseen, being unheard of, fostering this delightfully unique energy in the most wonderful way of expressing our courage, our collective courage.
This is what is present, this is what is alive, this is what seeks the fullest expression of my experience. No longer am I willing to hide anymore. I am alive, I am alive, I am alive. And I'm grateful to be alive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you.
Wow. What an opportunity to express how much we care.
we've just gone through the justice process for courage of being. How was it for you, and what's it brought up?
It's shown me that giving voice to feelings that I'm not aware that are lying hidden within my being is so freeing. So we've just been through this incredible experience together, and I found the courage to express my frustration, the courage to express anger that was present within my field that I wasn't aware of. And in that is a freedom to feel joy and love and connection, and giving myself permission to express myself, which is everything that I stand for. And this process has allowed me to find aspects of myself that I wasn't aware that were there. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's a very enlivening experience.
Yeah, my pleasure. Are there any particular aspects that stand out for that you'd like to share?
When we were creating the subject of our co-creation, being the courage of being, finding the courage in the moment to express, and realizing that that is a choice, and that that's what courage looks like, and finding that strength in my heart to be willing to go there in a safe space, and realizing the freedom that's come as a result of it it's profound. And that courage, we talk about like fear and the courage to move through fear. I realized that so much of my life I was still focused on the fear and wasn't able to muster the courage, but I've discovered courage. So I've discovered courage now. And that's a beautiful thing. And being willing to see and hear myself and give my permission to myself to be seen and heard is quite it's quite beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
I must say it was so wonderful from my perspective to really feel the energy and the energy of the expression, and even just the word courage. It's sort of like you can really just as a sound, so yeah, just feeling that come through was just really wonderful, and I'm really honoured that you were able to join me in expressing and finding that courage.
And just one more thing on that is I feel as though I've had such judgment about the emotion of anger. And actually I was able to summon it in a really healthy way in that experience, to summon the energy of anger to action, to find the courage to feel and to express how I'm feeling, has energized me and has shown me a passion that was perhaps lying a little bit stagnating underneath what my experience is. So that was really cool as well. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to. Can you dig into that a little bit more? Like, was it the ability to have the themes there that then you could kind of bring that passion to, or how did it emerge?
It came through as a result of the process we went through. Was as we affirmed the courage of being, I realized that I had shame and judgment around anger. And anger's always shown up in my life unskillfully. So it's been an eruption or an explosion when I'd got to a point where I could no longer contain myself. Rather than becoming inquisitive and curious about this energy and what it's telling me, what the information is in there, and to see that anger, like compassionate anger, it's like, okay, well, I can use this now for good. I can use this to drive me into action rather than feeling small. So in a way, it's helped me look at shame in a different way and look at my grief in a different way. And just to realize that there's beauty in the fullness of this whole experience. And with the permission to allow all of that to be present without judgment is, it's very freeing, Bobby. Yeah, very freeing.
Oh, it's so energizing and inspiring hearing you talk about it like that. So is there anything that comes to mind in terms of the work you do, or any of the projects that you have on, that you're immediately feeling this infusion that you can bring it to?
I think having that process recorded, so we've gone through a process of showing ourselves what can emerge if we allow it, what can emerge if we feel safe enough and connected enough in a conversation to share ourselves with one another, what can emerge that we may have no awareness of. And that so much of my work is around, well, what is it that we're afraid of experiencing? What is it that we're afraid of feeling? And there's so much beauty in the fullness of the felt experience of life. And I would just invite people to look at this experience and to see the energy that you and I are sharing now as a result of giving ourselves permission to fully express ourselves. Yes.
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 I'm astonished at how wonderfully the subject came around, courage of being, but it really is that. I guess it's like if you apply it to what you said about anger, you know, it's not something to be scared of, or it's something to courageously be aware of and implement and be with.
Like be with. I often talk to my clients and say, can you be with your experience? Like, what do you mean? Well, I'm like, well, what's present for you? And as we've shown in this process, so much is presence that we're not aware of, or we don't know how to give voice to. And just that ability to turn our attention curiously inside and inquire of ourselves what is present, what needs to be seen, what needs to be heard, and find an outlet for that expression is like, the space it creates is extraordinary. Extraordinary. And it's like the courage, you know, to be in our hearts, the willingness to go to that place, and the love that it creates is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Wow. So, yeah, where will you take this now? What will you take it to?
Wow. I mean, I will always remember this experience because I've just learned more about myself. And I often speak of the emotional spectrum from apathy to ecstasy in the 16 different emotional states that are contained therein, the fullness of our being, and how in our human experience so often there's a judgment against so many of these experiences of which the fullness of being is, which is to be sensitive. Why have we come into this human experience other than to feel and to learn and to grow? Everything that we're looking to achieve and create in our life is founded upon a feeling that we wish to create and experience. And this is a sort of a beautiful way to realize that experience is created from within and not from without. And so if I can find this joy, what will I do with that joy? How will I pour that joy into the world? And what experiences will I create from a place of joy? You know? So, yeah, for me, it's about modeling and articulating and giving language and naming our experience to make more and more people aware of what's available to us. So I'm so grateful for this invitation to be in this experience and further my own knowledge of being, you know, and giving myself permission to be who I am.
What I'm hearing is you kind of expressing, like, I guess, a map that you're aware of, but then maybe you feel like today almost been able to increase the fidelity of that map, or the sort of go into the depths and the richness a little more.
Absolutely. I think it's David Hawkins who wrote this book, The Map of Consciousness.
Oh, right.
And he starts down with apathy, shame, guilt, despair, and slowly moving up to anger. And then at the level of neutrality is courage. So you have to find your anger in order to discover courage. So anger is a precursor to courage. And once you've found courage, you can access peace, appreciation, love, understanding, joy, bliss, ecstasy. But there's a process on this scale. And I've just had the realization, the experience of how anger is required in this experience to generate courage. Okay, so I can use my anger in a healthy way to generate courage to find the more beautiful emotional experiences that we all seek. which are available. But courage, how do I find my courage? Well, I just found it because we just created it together.
And so then there's like an energetic force from the anger that kind of
As
gives you
said,
that
energy
buoyancy.
uprising, energy
Yeah.
sourcing. It's the lower energy sourcing up. Yeah.
Wow, I'm loving the idea of like kind of I guess if you do experience like the more lower or negative emotions, the heavier ones, maybe that sort of goes down, compresses, and then kind of recycles. I don't know if that's even
goes down and it depresses. It depresses. What's the opposite of depression? Well, it's expression, and we've just had an experience of freedom of expression, the fullness of being, the courage of being fully expressed. What does that look like? Well, I've just had an experience of what it looks like with you and I in connection, which is very cool.
Yeah. And I guess that's it, because otherwise we might ignore those aspects and just leave them, and maybe more stuff would land in that particular, if you want to call it, a pot of whatever that emotion is within us. But by recognizing it or seeing it and then expressing it, it empties
Well, you
it.
said ignoring it, and like, what if we didn't ignore or deny, but what if we allowed? And how can we allow more of this? Well, we have to find tools and experiences that allow these feelings and emotions to emerge, and then we become more versed in the experience of being alive.
And maybe we actually, I know I probably certainly did myself, is I had habits that would be the opposite of what a tool to explore and express it might be. A habit that avoided it.
How can I distract myself or get away from this experience? And it's the unknown that often pushes us away from this experience. So what if my anxiety or my depression is giving me information about what might be there to be expressed? What if we use the word crying? Crying is such a beautiful way to find grief, to find fear, to find loneliness. But where can we feel safe enough or be with someone who's willing enough to be with us through our experience without judgment, that allows the safety of the feelings to emerge? And we just created that. So like denying aspects of ourselves or ignoring aspects of ourselves that are crying out to be seen and heard, but we've got to do the seeing and we've got to do the hearing, and that's what's in so much of our way, I think.
Because I guess in a lot of the interactions or maybe roles that we fulfill in our life, we don't necessarily have the chance or it's not normally set up to do that.
No, it's not. Exactly. You know, I hold men's circles on Thursdays here in Bali, and I hold one online on Wednesdays. And they're there.
What's it called? Would you like to share the name?
It's called The Privileged Man.
Oh,
and
fantastic,
it's a reframe on the word privilege, being those men that are willing to discover a new way of being for themselves, for their partners, for their children, for their communities, for their businesses, for the global community. Like, if we can model a more sensitive aspect to ourselves, and when I say sensitive, it means becoming aware of the fullness of experience. It doesn't necessarily mean, oh, he's so sensitive, you know, watch about. No. Sensitive means to be alive. What are we? How many senses do we have as a human being? Well, to allow the fullness of that experience to become available. And we find that when men sit in circle and are willing to be with themselves and with one another and to see what emerges in that expression, we all realize that we're way more similar than we are different, and that we all know what apathy, desperation, fear, shame, guilt, pride are. And in the acknowledgement of those aspects, like we've just experienced, we can access the more pleasurable, the more beautiful, the more loving emotions too. Because if we're repressing anything, we're repressing them all. So how do we open ourselves up to the fullness of our experience? Yeah.
Personally, I haven't done a lot of men's groups or men's work, but I have done some recently. But what I realized at the beginning of it was how I found it to be such almost a really intimidating first step to take. And that was one of the realizations that, you know, I was kind of, you know, regarding myself as, you know, not a tough guy, but like a tough guy, if that makes any sense, you know, like a masculine man. And then so then to come to terms with the idea that I found it difficult to go into like an all male environment and be open, or I didn't even really know what was involved in it. But I wonder if you can, maybe if there's anyone that is watching this that is kind of feeling a similar kind of resistance to doing that or engaging in it, what would you share with them?
I would simply share that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And any fear or resistance that you may have about being in circle will dissolve when you hear what other men are sharing in the space, and that it takes courage to take the first step. But even being in a space where you're hearing other men share so openly about struggles, about burdens, about strife, but also about hope, experience, and strength, it's the most relieving thing in the world to suddenly realize you're not alone. And courage is the first step, and courage really is just coming through fear. Because as men, we haven't been traditionally modeled as expressive human beings. And society itself doesn't encourage it or doesn't allow it. And so we're existing in a construct or an idea of what a man is that doesn't allow these experiences to occur. And so we look for these enjoyments outside of ourselves, but they don't exist outside of ourselves. How many men have gone out in the world and done everything that we asked of them to still find themselves feeling bereft and empty? Because it starts within. So I encourage any man who's listening or thinking about taking the first step to reach out, to find a circle, to contact us, to come and be a part of the circle, and to realize the freedom that can be found in learning how to get back in touch with feelings and expression. It's what gave me my life back, was discovering my voice and the feelings that my voice could express.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And we really have expressed some wonderful things today with our voices, haven't we?
Absolutely.
And I really find that it was so wonderful to resonate and feel that energy and that freedom of expression that you had as well. And I just kind of felt like it was just this kind of incremental, energy, I guess, or enthusiasm, even anger to a certain extent, but it kind of didn't feel necessarily like a anger in the traditional context. It was more like a kind of a powerful.
It was like passion. And courage.
Passion and courage.
And it, for me, when I was experiencing you in that free flow piece, I just sat there with you, and I felt love in the passion and the courage, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, I must
Quite
admit,
amazing.
I was really blown away by your expression in the free flow piece as well. I was
Quite amazing.
It was I witnessed you fully. I had my eyes open for that, which I hadn't done yet, and it was just delightful and jaw-dropping to just witness you expressing that power.
I didn't realize how frustrated I was.
Yeah,
so I just found expression for frustration.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was very welcome. It wasn't like a kind of a jilted, limited frustration. It was just like, expressing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that whole experience. It was beautiful.
Oh, my absolute pleasure.
Really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to share or express anything else now? It feels like we're maybe winding up. But...
Now, I invite and encourage anyone, but men in particular, to reach out, to speak up, and to understand that we are all in the same boat. We are all in the same boat, and we are all freely feeling human beings. And I feel as though these times and these moments are asking of us to discover deeper parts of ourselves, mental health, emotional health. I don't look at it as mental health. I look at it as mental health because people are so stuck in their minds, and I look at actually emotional health being the cure to mental health. But we need to model that to one another. We need to show that to one another, and we need to love, support, and encourage one another back into the felt experience, because it can feel pretty scary when you haven't been fully feeling your whole life to suddenly come up against big emotions. So I have complete compassion and understanding for a lot of the resistances for reaching out in this new vein. But again, I say that you're not alone, and you'd be absolutely astounded by how many men are walking around thinking that they're the only ones suffering. It's complete bullshit. But there is another way. Yeah.
And do you think we can tie courage, an element of courage, into that kind of like
Taking the first step?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That resistance and that fear and that taking that first step to overcome it is a demonstration of courage. So we know we've got it by taking the step.
So maybe if you like think back to yourself, maybe you're a man that would have been in your position when you were working in the city. What do you think like a really simple, courageous first step could be then that they could like do now? Would it be
ask for help?
Yeah.
Well, realize that they may need help and ask for help. And that can be as simple as talking to a best friend, talking to a wife, talking to someone that they trust will just hear them where they are, is the first step. Because there's a huge amount of pride of walking around and bearing the suffering or using any sort of substance in order to distract oneself from one's own feeling. But when I was working in the City of London, I was doing everything that had been bidden of me. I didn't realize there was another way to live. And I didn't realize that I was carrying an anxiety and a depression because that was my whole life experience. But there came a point where I said to myself, there has to be more to life than this. And when that happened, I started to take new steps, and I started to realize that there was a problem and I needed help with the problem. And with that admission comes the possibility for change. So even just to reach out and say, fuck, I'm stressed. I'm so stressed. I'm so worried. I don't know what's going on. I'm really not finding much joy in my work. I'm not finding much joy in my relationships. I only really feel alive when I have a drink or when I'm working. And so just to realize that there's an emptiness, to acknowledge the emptiness and realize that in acknowledging the emptiness is the first step to finding a connection and a way through.
So you gave a couple of examples. Even if it's just like asking for help with something that seems quite small, then at least you're
reaching out of yourself. You're reaching out of yourself. You're expressing yourself, and you're taking that risk. You know, we have to risk coming out of isolation. That's the first step. And that requires a little bit of courage, but we all have enough. We have courage in spades because we've survived in the old way of being, and that takes enormous resilience and strength. So it just requires awareness that there's another way of being and the courage to take a new step. It's like learning a new skill.
Well, I guess that's another thing that I was thinking when you were saying that, like, what if people don't even realize, you know, like...
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why these kind of conversations, I think, are so valuable. Like, what are they talking about? What are those two guys talking about? Does that resonate with me in any way? Do I have readily available access to joy, connection, laughter, bliss, without alcohol, drugs, sex, relationships, or work? That's a simple question. Do I readily experience joy? Or is my state of being a little bit jittery and fearful, or shame-bound? Or am I really irritable all the time? I don't know why, but I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting other people. What is your experience? Just to get curious, ask yourself, how am I feeling? And then it's like, well, if I haven't been feeling my whole life, how do I know what I'm feeling? Because it's all a big jumbled mess. And so how do I start to pick that apart? Well, you start to speak with someone who's understood those aspects of themselves, and gradually, slowly but surely, you come to know yourself better. And then we get to this fullness of being conversation. Like, I know what it all is and I'm allowing it all. And the more that I can feel some of the darker stuff, the more I've got access to the lighter stuff and these kind of experiences. Yeah, thank you for that opportunity to articulate that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to get that out of me. It's really, really lovely and helpful.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm just so interested in the ways that we can begin to look at these, like just the simple, maybe not steps, or just because that's one thing that it can sometimes be hard to relate the world or the work that you do, or personal development work or spiritual development work to people's lives, because it seems like there's this massive chasm there,
absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's like what does happiness really feel like? What does it feel like? Like for me, I couldn't answer that question. Am I happy? I'm fine. No, but am I happy? Am I joyful? Am I passionate? Am I expressive? Shit, I might have to first admit that I'm not happy in order to find happiness.
Or it might come in my experience, I guess it might have come in like really acute peaks, you know, because
Right.
it would have, maybe I would gone on a snowboarding trip or something,
Right.
and it would just be a really blissful,
Right.
but then it would just go back down to the normal state of being, which I later came to realize was quite anxious and fearful.
Well, there you go.
know?
So when we think about addiction, what are we really
Yeah.
addicted to? I
Yeah.
mean, if you ask people what their greatest addiction is, it's like, well, find out what you feel most of the time. What is your default state of being? Is it shame? Is it fear? Is it anger? Are you numb? What is actually happening?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to even realize what that default state
me
was.
Me too. It took me years. It took me years. Yeah.
I feel it like a kind of a really ingrained habit still. Like I have to be very clear of like noticing, oh, I'm going back down into that. I could almost think of it as an internal posture.
Right.
You know, like I felt today what we expressed was just so like balanced, wholesome and full. Like that courageous being, awareness, presence. But then if I reflect on it, it would be sort of like internally I would kind of like, and I would hold this emotional state of like kind of shame, victimization, and it's still there. It still comes back, you know. But
what were your main takeaways? I'm curious. Like, what was your main insight for yourself from that experience?
I think what I found was embracing the harder to feel bits was kind of needed at first, or I would kind of, I felt the energy and the courageous presence that I just described, but then it would kind of like falter, and it would pull me back towards like, oh, do I deserve to feel this? Can I continue to feel this? You know, do I have the capacity or the foundation for it to stay on? And so, yeah, I guess that element of self-doubt was present in that being. And yeah, so bringing that through, it was really a case of like, I guess, being with that and embracing it, and just step by step I felt maybe things came through. Like I can't actually remember a lot of the stuff that I said. It is almost like it just that's the idea, it's just flowing out, you know. So I'm
really excited to see the recording of it all.
It's funny, I kind of feel it. I guess this is really interesting. Like I kind of feel a little bit embarrassed reflecting that I don't remember what I said in that moment of free expression, which is I know it's okay, but it's just interesting how I'm still like feeling that kind of like, oh, I should have remembered everything I said. But
and do you feel as though you could recreate that courage that was generated in our conversation from the affirmation?
Yes, most certainly. I mean, that really, just the subject, you know, courage of being is just such a powerful statement in itself, and it really did support that ability to kind of look into those other bits, because I was like, okay, I've got this courage of being, but I'm feeling this self-doubt.
Exactly.
But so then it allows me to explore it and come back to the courage of being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. See, that can be. I feel as though for me anyway, that experience has shown me that I have the choice now to create courage when it's required.
Oh yes.
I didn't have that awareness.
Yes.
I didn't have that awareness before that experience. But now I have an embodied understanding of what courage feels like, so I can muster that. I can take myself back to this experience and know that I have the courage to face the fullness of my being. I have the courage to face these feelings. They're just feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, they're just feelings.
Yeah.
So.
That was so wholesome and alive hearing you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the courage to face our feelings.
Yeah. So what I love to do, or you know, clearly there's a lot of stuff that we've created and covered here, but my idea is that we can kind of maybe create the tip of the iceberg. So obviously we have courage of being is sort of like the beginning of that, but then if there was another sort of like soundbite or, you know, brief statement that you could share having reflected on all this, would it be that you just said? You know, they're just feelings, so we can have the courage to hear them? Or how would you summarize it?
The courage to feel our feelings.
Yeah.
Because this is the crux of it all. It's the courage to it's having the courage to feel. It's that is it.
Or even to look at the feelings to see, or what feelings might I have?
To be willing to discover them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
There's the willingness. It's like sincerity and willingness to have a look and see that there may be something else there that's screaming out to be seen and heard. Screaming out.
I've got this image of this courage to just have a quick look under the carpet.
Just have a look, yeah, just have a look. It's like my little daughter, she's 7 years old and she feels fear.
Yeah.
And she acknowledges it, but slowly but surely, she's mustering the courage to try new things. And she does that in her own process. I don't need to force her. I don't need to tell her how to be. It's like, okay, I understand that you're feeling fear. I don't need to try and make it away. There's nothing to be afraid of. Bullshit. Because look what we're talking about here. There's nothing to be afraid of but feelings themselves.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what is it that's going on for you right now?
All the connotations that we
the stories attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What's present? What's alive? Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, like courage. The courage of being is, having the courage to have a look at what you're feeling, and then maybe if you're feeling like you've got a bit more courage, feel it. Yeah. Or try to feel it at least.
Fear is uncomfortable. Period. Shame is uncomfortable. Period. Really deep guilt. It's uncomfortable. But there's magic the other side of them. Magic. Magic.
So that discomfort really has.
It's an indicator.
Got a learning.
It's an indicator of where to go. It's always lean in, and have the courage to lean in. You never know what you're going to find.
And I love that, because we even experienced that today, coming into the process, both feeling a little bit nervous. There's both a degree of energetic discomfort,
Absolutely.
But then we kind of
just drop right in.
Yeah, lean
connected,
into it.
Fully connected to our experience and each other. Fully connected. If people are feeling lonely or people are feeling empty, it's connection that's required. So who can I reach out to? Who can I connect to? And in that process, connect with actually what's going on for me. Express it.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to say again, I'm so grateful to have really dropped in with you today and really felt.
Likewise.
Collectively felt, and expressed.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just before we close up, if you'd like to share more, I'd love to hear it. But then it would just be nice if you could maybe just share what your offerings are and how people can get in touch with you, or maybe what's alive that you're offering at the moment, if anyone's watching, just to give them a reminder.
Yes, for anyone that's watching, my Instagram is at esmondbearing.com, where I create writings and I do videos and audios of modeling what's alive in the moment, of whether it's apathy or ecstasy. I do my best to be honest with the experience in the moment, to show there's another way of being. I'm taking 12 men on a 12-week journey to emotional freedom that begins September the 8th, which can also be found in my Instagram link tree. And we'll be looking at emotional dysfunction, sensitivity, shame, integrity, freedom, vulnerability, intimacy, choice, a lot of the stuff that we've explored today, but taking 12 men on a 12-week journey just to make them more aware of their experiences, and some simple tools and techniques to drop them more into their body curiosity about what's actually happening. And then my partner Pete Hunt and I are creating a platform called The Privileged Man, where we're going to be creating workshops and communities for men to come together in circle and take that courageous first step to watch what happens when men start speaking honestly and truly to their experience. It's profoundly healing and beautiful. And we've had men who've never ever looked in this direction before show up in these rooms and speak, and start speaking and admitting that they feel fear, admitting that they're feeling shame, admitting that they've got grief, and watching the emotions come forth. It's so humbling. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, feeling. I really encourage and invite people to take that first step. Send me a message, send me an email, anything. I'm always willing to be in a conversation and share what I know.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Esmond, thank you very much.
Thank
Such
you,
a
bro.
pleasure.
Thank you, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
I'm absolutely delighted.